Just as my preparations were complete, Ivarage finished its complete transformation. It had grown colossal, reaching a length of 100 meters. Its form had become completely grotesque, yet it possessed an eerie majesty. The upper body was that of a humanoid with 3 pairs of arms, while the lower body was a 6-legged wolf. Its head was that of a dragon. A mane resembling a blazing fire ran from the crown of its head down the back of its neck. On the back of the humanoid portion grew 3 pairs of wings like those of a giant eagle. Its entire body, from its head down to each individual leg, was densely covered in dragon scales. The most distinctive feature was the dragon's forehead. Embedded there was a human face. It resembled a mixture of Lucia and Veldanava, an androgynous visage that was impossible to classify as either male or female. The wolf's tail consisted of countless tentacles. It looked like it could generate them endlessly, and perhaps even sprout them from places other than the tail, so I made a mental note not to be deceived by appearances. In any case, this didn't seem like the fighting style I had envisioned. I had no further data to work with, so I would have to adapt as I fought. If you're done preparing, shall we get started? As I called out, Ivarage looked at me and let out a wicked laugh. Kai ha 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 ha. Power is welling up. I am alone. Who am I? I wondered if it had gone mad from being unable to control its immense power, but that didn't seem to be the case. It was weird to begin with. This seemed to be business as usual for Ivarage. Still, it bothered me. I'm Lucia. Lucia is Veldanava. And Veldanava is me. Ivarage. The physical transformation appears complete, but perhaps its mind hasn't settled yet. In other words, I am Luvelg. Ah, this bastard. It just named itself. There was no change in its appearance, but its power had stabilized. This meant its strength had increased overwhelmingly. Even more critical was the fact that Veldanava's absorbed soul had now been completely fused. At this point, wasn't separation impossible? Well, the probability is not 0, there are no current countermeasures. If you devour it completely with soul gluttony after defeating it and perform a detailed analytical appraisal. So there's a possibility. In that case, I shouldn't give up hope just yet. Just as I resolved myself, Ivarage, now Luvelg, opened its mouth. The face on the dragon's forehead turned its gaze toward me and offered a greeting. Good morning, hello, good evening. Yeah. Greetings are important. I suppose so. We won't be meeting again. Sayonara. While I was bewildered about how to respond, a horizontal flash swept through the spot where I had just been standing. Sensing the danger, I dodged and identified the attack. It was a cluster of tentacles. That was close. It wasn't that I had let my guard down, but the speed was in a different league than before. Superluminal, seriously, it was faster than light. Is superluminal speed possible in the suspended world because the laws of physics don't apply? No, the speed of information particles is supposed to be constant, so I didn't think a phenomenon like this was possible. I wanted to pat myself on the back for reacting in time, indulging in self-praise, while I handled Luvelge's fierce onslaught. Its massive body remained right in front of me. Only the tentacles detached from its tail were attacking, tracking my movements. If that were all, I could manage, but I felt a sudden chill and looked back at Luvelge's colossal form. Something felt terribly wrong. I looked closely and saw the face on its forehead had vanished, and in that instant, I sensed a presence behind me. I hurriedly blocked the incoming killing intent with my sword, while shifting my stance in midair. What had Acme appeared to be a separated part of Luvelg. I wasn't certain, but it was likely the main body. It stood about the same height as Veldanava, just over 180 centimeters. It had 2 pairs of arms. The standard pair held swords in both hands. The second, slightly smaller pair growing from its underarms was clasped in front of its abdomen, forming hand seals. Between those hands rested a shining orb the size of a golf ball, a swirling mix of black and white that emitted an intense presence. On its back were 3 pairs of wings. The top pair were angel wings, the bottom pair demon wings, and the middle pair were golden crimson wings, similar to those of Cornu. It looked rather slender and toned. Like the giant body, this form was protected by an armor-like exoskeleton and dragon scales. From behind came the tentacle attacks of the giant body. And in front stood the humanoid Luvelg. This was, quite seriously, bad. I had to deal with the humanoid in front of me while remaining wary of the colossus behind me. The giant body launched tentacle attacks. The humanoid used sword strikes and magic. Its dual-wielding style was fluid and efficient, and it fired off primitive magic without a moment's pause. However, I wasn't losing either. Elpis, infused with the power of Vildora and the others, possessed greater power than Luvelge's twin swords. Moreover, with soul gluttony I could nullify emission-type attacks. It didn't matter if it was primitive magic. I could easily recover from any disadvantageous position. The tentacles were troublesome, but as long as I kept the location of the giant body in mind, I could handle them with some leeway. Thinking that this was surprisingly manageable, I continued to engage Luvelg. The fierce exchange seemed like it would continue forever. What became clear was the fact that even the humanoid Luvelg was stronger than Veldanava. It could utilize all of Veldanava's authorities, and its energy was inexhaustible, like Millam's. It even seemed to master star particles, making its attacks flawless. Honestly, if I didn't block with Elpis, massive damage was guaranteed. Immediate annihilation wouldn't be surprising. My senses were numbed because I was managing to cope, but one wrong step meant game over. It is fine. According to my calculations, damage from a direct hit would be minor. You've definitely miscalculated that. I'm worried. At this critical juncture, Seal-san had turned into a klutz. She had her weird moments before, but I really wanted her to be reliable right now. That is offensive. Well, it couldn't be helped. I still had fight left in me, so I'd just have to hold out until Seal-san was back to normal. As I thought this, Luvelg, who had been focused on attacking, suddenly stopped. Why do you block the attacks? Huh? That last one was a pattern you should have dodged, yet you blocked it. Are you protecting what's behind you? Ugh, busted. Luvelg's attacks were overwhelming. There was a high chance no one, but I could withstand them. I was currently focusing power into Gaia to construct a maximum barrier, mitigating the impact on the cardinal world itself. But if an attack were to strike the ground directly, the consequences were impossible to predict. That was why I made sure to block those specific attacks instead of dodging. It had seen through me. Luvelg sneered wickedly. You are different from B. You hate having your comrades broken. If the planet breaks, your comrades die too. So, you protect them. It wasn't a question, but a statement. It was the moment my weakness was exposed. Generally, fighting while protecting someone makes you weaker. Luvelg should struck precisely at that point. Kayaha. I'll kill everyone. I'll break everything. High intelligence mixed with childish cruelty. That imbalance was deeply unsettling, but this wasn't the time to dwell on it. I had to use all my strength to stop Luvelg's wickedness. However, Luvelg's next move was precise. Hey, what does lonely feel like? Huh. I was lonely. So, I'll teach you what it feels like. As soon as it said that, Luvelg's giant body moved. It dashed toward the ground, launching a physical attack using its tentacles, which had multiplied to over 10,000. Its target wasn't me, but the people on the ground. Each tentacle was stronger and sharper than any ordinary sword, possessing power that was impossible to handle without being Genesis class. Even before that, simply being trampled by that colossal body would end everything. Stopping this was impossible, even with the maximum barrier. It was a hopeless sight. I realized that understanding Luvelg was impossible after all. Killing everyone and destroying the world just to teach me loneliness, it made absolutely no sense. Veldanava at least had a purpose, but Luvelg was just playing. If there were some goal after the destruction, there might have been a possibility of understanding. But there was nothing, which made its actions meaningless. To die getting caught up in something like that was completely unforgivable. In this world, there are simply people whose way of thinking you can never align with. It's best to keep your distance from such people, but it's a hassle when they come looking for you. Luvelg said it had been lonely. That might have been unfortunate, but there are countless people in the world who are far more unfortunate. Not everyone is happy, yet there are those who overcome their misfortunes and live admirable lives. Since I've had a relatively happy life, I doubt I can truly understand the feelings of those who are genuinely unfortunate. However, I could assert with certainty that the mindset of I am unhappy, so others should suffer the same fate is clearly wrong. One should not do to others what one would not want done to oneself. People are not equal. By enforcing societal systems and rules, and reforming people's consciousness, it might be possible to realize equality to the greatest extent possible. Yet, that is still limited. The differences in innate ability cannot be denied no matter what. If we could allocate appearance and ability scores as we pleased, like in a game, all discrimination would likely be eradicated. Whether short or fat, it would be the form that person chose to create. No matter what anyone said, you could retort, I like this, you got a problem. But reality isn't like that. Whether we like it or not, we have no choice but to make the best of who we are. That is exactly why inequality is inevitable. Thinking in that sense, a world where everyone can equally enjoy peace and happiness seems to exist only in dreams. So, if you say this world is incomplete, then you are probably right. But even admitting that point does not justify destroying it. Furthermore, destroying things just because they don't go your way is an incredibly childish and immature way of thinking. Precisely because it is incomplete, we should strive to make it a better world with our own hands. If you don't listen to others and only insist on your own views, you will never reach mutual understanding. That is because there is no compassion for others in such an attitude. If someone like that complains about being lonely or isolated, I can only say, well, no wonder. Therefore, I reject Luvelg's ideology. I concluded that our existences were utterly incompatible, and I decided to stake my all on denying it. I silently exercised my authority. I calmly teleported to the front of the lined-up ice statues, appearing directly before Luvelgé's massive body. Then, driven by my anger, I swung Elpis. Naturally, I didn't intend to end it with just this. To annihilate Luvelgé's colossal body, which was essentially a mass of super energy, would require truly astronomical power. My plan was to make it flinch with this blow and draw its attention back to me. However, my slash became a mighty blade that tore through the heavens and continued on to cleave right through the massive Luvelg. Moreover, that wasn't the end of it. Immense energy was birthed, generating lightning of nihility, and the torn sky showed no sign of healing. The dimension ripped open, connecting to another world. Time flowed there, causing a tremendous space-time storm to avalanche into our space. It formed a vortex, swallowing Luvelgé's massive body and crushing it into oblivion through compressive collapse. Luvelgé's colossal form, which would likely feel a gravity collapse as nothing more than a gentle breeze, was helplessly carved up and disintegrated. Kaiahi. Huh. Luvelg was surprised, but I was even more so. I stood there, sword in hand, dumbfounded. This is the natural result. That was not merely the effect of the space-time storm, but the effect of imaginary blade where master's nihility became the blade. Resisting it would be impossible. No. Huh. Why does it have so much power? It went exactly as planned, did it not? Like hell it did. I fired that off with the mindset of a test shot. This level of power was completely unexpected. The plan was to deal some damage, draw its attention to me, and whittle down its strength little by little. And yet, this was the result. I didn't get too carried away, you know. Culprit found. I had dealt a massive blow to Luvelg before even going all out, so it was natural that I was surprised. However, the cause was now identified. Even after becoming Dragon Core's Vildor and the others could still adjust their power output. I intended to use about 70%, while Velgrand and Velzard adjusted to about 30%. This required perfect synchronization, but communication was going surprisingly well. Only Vildor had gone full throttle, exerting his power in response to my anger. That was why it resulted in a terrifying supernatural phenomenon far beyond my expectations. If that's the case, we really need a pre-game huddle. Yumu, you should be more careful next time. My foolish brother needs to reflect on his actions. Vildor-chan seems to want a punishment. Jai Wawa. Knowing the cause cleared things up. I appreciated Vildor's sentiment, but I wanted him to learn a bit more cooperation for next time. With that settled, I moved to clean up the mess.